Now let's talk about the short shank and the short box coupler. A lot of people use these where space is limited, especially on engines. You have the standard draft gearbox, and a lot of times if you put these on engines, the truck will not clear. So when the truck is trying to pivot, it hits this box. This box is too long. So a lot of people move to the short box and the short shank. Now I've tried that, I've done it, I didn't like it. I usually run 072 curves, and even those with these short shank couplers, they cause an issue and your engines will derail, especially if you run multiple unit consist. You can see here the medium shank coupler, the standard 743 or 805, is quite a bit longer than that short shank coupler. And you also see these little wings right here on both sides of that short coupler, whereas the standard coupler does not have those. Those wings and this short shank limit the amount of side-to-side travel in this coupler. That's what causes the derailment problems on tighter curves, even 072. So I use the standard coupler, and I will just turn it into a short box with the medium shank in order to give me as much swing as I can to eliminate all those derailment problems with my engines, and so that the trucks clear the box and won't hit. I'll show you the bottom side of one of the engines so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, now this is an essential tool for me when I'm doing Kadee conversions, my bench grinder. I didn't show you that earlier. Not everybody's going to use it. Not everybody has one. You could do the same thing with a file. If you're using these metal boxes, you're going to be filing on this thing for a long time. If you do use the plastic boxes, you can just cut those down with the razor blade, exacto knife, your chopper, whatever. But because I use metal couplers with metal boxes and I want to shorten this up, I use my bench grinder. So I'll just turn this thing on. Again, my big fat fingers come in handy. I can hang on to this thing, and I'm just going to make my own short box. Starts to get warm, just dip it back there in the water. I like to give it a nice round edge on the ends. I don't know why, just for looks. It looks better than squared off blunt. And I usually take it all the way down to the back of the coupler shank itself. You can see it moving there. I usually grind the box all the way down to that. If that thing's sticking out of the box a little bit, it doesn't hurt at all. It doesn't affect its operation. See, now we got the back sticking out a little bit. That's not a problem. Then I'll take it over to my wire wheel and just clean that up a little bit. See, and now I have a short box. The medium coupler, the short box, and it's not much bigger than the plastic short shank short box coupler, and this works much better. And you just grind the back of it right off. Now that we have the standard coupler, we've shortened the box, and you can see the travel side to side. Now let's just say you have a passenger car or even a 6-axle engine that you just need a little more travel out of that thing. The only thing that's holding this up is the bottom half of the draft gearbox. You can see the shank hits on the edge of that. So I'll show you what I do to create even a little bit more travel, and just that little bit that you can create by grinding this bottom box usually does the trick to eliminate those derailments on curves and reverse curves. So I take the bottom portion right here, I use my bench grinder, and I'm just going to grind down the front sides on each side, just using the grinder. Get both sides. Try to do this so you can see it and I don't grind my fingers. And just grind it so the sides come flush with this bottom lip here. I'll hit that with the wire wheel just to clean it up. Make sure that it's flush so the shank don't rub on it. That one's not quite flush. Hit that one a little more. And there we go. Got that one flush. Hit it with the wire wheel again to clean it up. Run the file over it just to make sure that it's smooth on the bottom. There you go. Grab another coupler and a lid so you can see your coupler. There's a lid. I'm not going to put the centering spring in there because it doesn't affect the swing, but just so you can see here. Now you can see that the center shank extends out past the side there. So now you got quite a bit more side to side swing just by grinding that front bottom of the box off. See, there's the standard one. And you got just enough, and that little bit usually makes the difference. And you might say, oh yeah, well that looks ugly. Well, most of the time these are on engines, so when this is stuffed in there, you're not going to see that. Once you touch it up with the black paint, you're not going to see the shiny silver, and you're not even going to notice that the side of the box isn't there. It doesn't affect the operation of the coupler. The centering spring still keeps it centered, but when you're going through the curves and reverse curves, you got just enough movement there, especially when you got two of these back to back that are modified, and you have a lot more room. This is another one of those reasons why guys don't like to convert to Kadee, because this is a lot of work. To me, it's fun, it's a hobby. I enjoy doing it. I like the looks of the locomotives once that is done. So I don't mind the little extra work. Okay, so here we have an MTHF unit. This is one that I converted to a fixed pilot. You can see this is the pilot here. I cut a spacer out of styrene. The spacer and the pilot are attached to the frame of the chassis with these two screws here. Then I built the pad, mounted the Kadee on here. Now this is one of those that I said I always use two screws. Well, this one's only got one because I couldn't fit them in here in the side because of the stuff that's inside the engine. And this one, you can see I ground that off in order to clear the truck. Now I could have taken this whole thing apart and cut this off, but it was just easier for me to grind this down a little bit in order to clear, so the truck rotates. And this coupler is glued and screwed, so it's not going to come loose. And this is the lead engine anyway, so there's never anything coupled to this. It's just for looks. That's why everything got painted silver. But no more gap, no more swinging pilot. The trucks turn freely. The coupler was painted to match, and that is a Kadee 740 coupler that I showed you with the modified box. And I didn't modify the sides because it's the lead engine and it's not going to be pulling any cars anyway. This is a MTH-9 model. It's one of the fixed pilot -2 versions. It originally came with 2 rail wheels. I swapped them out to high rail wheels. The pilot's already attached. They got standard 740 Kadee couplers. They use the side holes. The MTH engine came with the screws. You just slide the Kadee in there, put the screws in, you're good to go. These holes were tight though. I had to re-tap them with one of my taps to get those screws in there because the paint got in there, jammed up the threads, so a couple of them got stripped out and I had to re-tap them. You can see once again I modified the back of that coupler box in order for the truck to clear on a curve. Now again, I could have taken this out, cut that off, but it's a whole lot easier. Take this coupler over to the grinder, grind the back of it off, hit it with the wire brush, put it back on, you're good to go. Okay, now here's the prime example of why I spend so much time and energy doing it. Like I said, it's a hobby. I like to do it. It's relaxing for me to sit out here at the bench and do this kind of stuff. And I think it's a big improvement over this versus this. This versus this. You got swinging pilots here. That pilot's stationary, the truck's turned, the front stays there. Same there, fixed pilot. None of this stuff going around the curves. I run bigger curves than at the club, so it's not a concern for me anyways, and I just prefer to look at this versus that. The 2-rail models are equipped for Kadees. They don't come with them. You just put them on. The holes are drilled. You screw them on. Now, the non-powered dummy units do not. As you can see, they have a swing pilot, and there's no provision for a KD. So this is a full-on, will be a 3-rail conversion to fixed pilots and full-length handrails. I've already done my Dash 8. This is a Dash 9. I obviously haven't done this one yet, but it will get done. This is the lead unit. This is the rear unit. The passenger car as it pulls still has the lobster claw, and you don't see it anyway. This one's out on the point, so that's the one everybody sees. It looks much better like that. And I like running 4 units. I have all 4 road numbers of the Dash 8s and Dash 9s, so I convert both the non-powered units to have Kadee couplers with fixed pilots, so I can run them with the other 3 powered units. This is why I do O-scale Kadee couplers right here. These are quite a bit more complicated than doing the cars. I'll show you the cars, Atlas, MTH, Lionel cars. They're different. I'll show you how to do that. And eventually I'll get into one of these 3-rail conversions so you can see what's involved in that. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more O-scale Kadee couplers.